moderating today from the unceded stolen lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. Our panelists are coming from a variety of different people's lands, and I want to take this time to acknowledge mine and our inherited privilege to be present with this land. This morning's brunch panel, we are going to be talking about the dance call. If you've auditioned for a musical or a play with movement, you've been there, or maybe you've heard about it and you're curious to know more. We've got some lovely friends with different backgrounds in dance training and approaches to how they enter those rooms, and I'm really excited to be talking about this Friday morning. Audience, as always, if you have questions as we're talking, please feel free to write them in the chat on Zoom or on Facebook Live if you're watching from there. We'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can before the end of our hour. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce to you our panel. This morning we have Paul Almeida, Makayla, Amanda Testini, and me. Hello. All right, so to start us off, I want to know, how do you feel about going into a dance call? Straight off the bat, you've just walked in the room. Ready, set, go.
Well, I mean, I'll talk about the way I approach it, and the way I approach it is always from a confident point of view, just because that's a very confident answer. A very confident point of view, just because I'm going to show you what I know. I'm not going to try and do stuff that I can't do. And I'll talk about that later. That's how I approach it I didn't grow up dancing, but that's how I've had to approach it, because that's the only way I feel like I'm going to be successful. But
I love it. The dance call is my jam. That's kind of where I feel the most comfortable. So I definitely, like, I trained in dance my whole life. So that's kind of the genre, or no, the discipline that I feel the most comfortable in. So for me, the dance call is just an excuse to go in and learn a new combo and dance with lots of other awesome people in the room and just enjoy what I'm doing. So I'm kind of lucky in that way.
Yeah, I feel similarly to Makayla. Like it's an opportunity to try on somebody else's choreography and connect with people that you're auditioning with, because when you're doing your singing call or even your acting call, sometimes you're not you don't get to interact with people, but there's a lot of once the choreography is given to us, there's a lot of, oh, do you remember that thing? Or like, how do you do this thing? Or, there's lots of time to connect. So that's fun too. And it's just like, just feels good to move your body, especially with all the nerves going on. It just feels good to like move. So
Totally. Yeah. I personally love when an audition starts with a dance call or some kind of movement. I think it just like, it helps set me up to get those like nerves and those weird 100%. Feelings out. I love that. Mm-hmm. And something I want to add on that, Makayla actually once mentioned to me a couple years back. Makayla, you once said to me that you look at auditions and dance calls and you approach them as if you're going to class. And that's something that I've always carried with me for a really long time, and how I look into for all my auditions. And I find like the auditions that I can walk into remembering that have been super helpful. So thank you for that. And I hope you still use that, because it's a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
And oh, sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, I'm just agreeing verbally.
Amazing. Which segues kind of nicely into this. What do you focus on before and during the audition?
Well, I mean, I could talk about this forever, especially in my mental game seminar, July 2nd at 5 p.m. What do I focus on? Myself? It's hard. I mean, that's the trap, right? There's 100 other people here, maybe less in a COVID world, but there's a lot of other people here. There's a lot of distractions. Oh, that person's better than me. I should be wearing this. Did I wear the right shoes? Is there enough space here? Should I be on the right side? Should I be in the front line? Should I be in the... There's so many things that, like, where do you begin? You just begin with, what am I bringing to this dance call? What do I need to be successful? Are we facing the way we're going to face when we do this dance call? Am I the person who needs to be facing that way when I rehearse it? There's so many things that you need to be self-aware enough to know what you need. And I mean, speaking for myself, what do I focus on? I focus on what I'm going to be thinking of when it's just me in the 4-person group. That's what you're going to end up doing, right? So it's great if you can do it in a small box with 26 people around you, but in terms of how visualizing what it's going to look like when we do the 4-person thing, that's what I focus on.
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot to say about this. That I'll talk briefly because I feel like we'll probably go into more things later. But for me, like before the audition, simple things like I need to make sure that I ate enough food, but like made sure I had something healthy so I don't feel gross going into the dance call, and like make sure I like got enough sleep the night before. All of the simple things that we all need to do before an audition. I like make sure that I like have chosen my outfit and that it's something I feel comfortable in, and something that I feel comfortable in, and making sure that I'm warming up properly before. And then like I really make sure that I walk into not only the rehearsal hall, but like just the building with like a positive attitude, because you never know when the assistant is going to be in the waiting room, or like this is for any audition ever. You never know who is watching you at the moment you walk into the building. So just like coming in with a positive attitude. And then during the audition, I think the biggest thing I focus on is just making sure that I'm being seen. And again, like I know that like the dance call is something I feel more comfortable in, but when you're in a dance call with 50, 100 other people and there's a panel of 3 people, they're not gonna be able to like really see everybody. So you need to make sure that you're positioning yourself to be seen. So that's especially before, I think that they've cast the show before they split into groups very often. So I think that you need to make sure that you're being seen before they split into groups. That's something that is really important to me when I'm in the room.
Yeah.
Ted.
Yeah, I feel like before the dance call, like making sure that I'm warmed up is really important. Like that would be the main thing. And yeah, that's a really good point about making sure that you eat something that you don't feel like nauseous over, just something like light, but that gives you energy. And then in the dance call, I usually focus on being present and open, because when I feel present and open, it means that I can absorb choreography better, and it means that I can be my spatial awareness is better, and also making sure that I can be connected to the choreography in a way that is unique to me, that I'm bringing like my own artistry to the choreography and storytelling. And then also like being present with the choreographer as well, right? Like all of those things, so like openness, connection, like within and like without.
That's a great thing you bring up, Amanda, about being like honestly and openly genuine with those kind of connections. And also about connecting with like what a choreographer is trying to get across story-wise as well. Because I feel like we've probably all been in auditions where someone in the dance call maybe hasn't gotten all the steps, but they are selling it in such a way that you're like, well, that person's got it. It doesn't matter that they like didn't get this certain step or whatever, but like this person is connecting with people and telling some kind of story. And I personally love when I get to see that.
Yeah. And like full disclosure, like I'm not always like picking up choreography is like a challenge for me sometimes, so it's like I really rely on that, right? Because I know that I can get it eventually, but but if I don't get it in that call, like 100% of the stuff, it's like I need to make up that percentage somewhere else. And so usually it's in storytelling and connection.
Yeah, completely agree. Now we touched on this a little bit, and then what we were just talking about, eating bananas, eating our stretching, warming up, drinking that water. But what do you work on outside of the audition to better prepare you for the dance call? Outside of the right foods to eat beforehand, maybe a class or
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest thing that people tend to freak out about and struggle with in the dance call is learning choreography quickly, right? Like the thing again that's very different about the audition than once you have the job is yes, you learn quickly on the job as well, but you have 3 weeks to kind of like take it away and make sure that you can perfect it. So in the room, it's like a heightened level of stress for a lot of people because it's choreography that you have to pick up right in that hour or whatever. So I would say just taking different classes and learning different combos. That's the only, like I've had people ask me like, what's your trick for learning choreography? I'm like, you have to do it. There's not a trick. You just have to do it. And especially during this time, there's so many like online dance classes that we can be doing at home. So I think that's the number one is just picking up choreography on like a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I mean,
such
It's a skill. It's something that just needs to be practiced. It's not something you're just all of a sudden gonna learn how to do.
right. If you are a trained professional dancer who's good at picking up things and you really have nothing to worry about, but if you're more like me, then there's two skills that you need to get through the dance call. And one is picking up choreo and then adjusting it to what you can do. And then two, being in the moment and being able to navigate how to adjust when you miss things or you can't do things. And that's the big skill that I need to work on. So how do you work on that? By putting yourself in that position over and over. Go to a bunch of dance calls that you have no intention of getting.
Classes.
Go to classes, do all those things that you need to put yourself in the position where I completely missed that, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to move on and learn that. You need to do that so that when you get to the audition and it happens, you go, it's fine. I've done this before and I'll learn that part later. Mm-hmm. Now is not the time to work on your technique. You need to get through the dance call. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, yeah, exactly. Get to class and like take different people's classes. Like I know sometimes I start getting into a rhythm of being like, oh, I love that Wednesday class and I love that Monday class, but it's the same choreographers over and over. And then you start to know their style and then it gets easier to pick up because you know the style, but it's really important to keep trying on different people's choreography because what feels natural for them might not feel natural for you. And it's great to like keep that versatility going. And then also just straight up fitness. Like I have so many friends who have gone into a dance hall and been like, whoa, my cardio. And it's like, yeah, like that's, as a performer, it's really important to have a certain level of stamina because we're in this heightened state for a couple hours and you got to multitask and like sing and dance and, you know, so making sure that you've got a certain level of stamina within yourself that you can crank it when you need to.
And stretching.
stretch.
You're not going to be able to kick your face in that dance call if you haven't been stretching.
Don't hurt yourself.
Yeah, that's how you hurt yourself.
Has anyone else also been in a call where someone has like torn a hamstring because they've decided today is the day where they're going to hit a split?
I don't think so, no.
I've seen people rip their pants.
Ripping pants for sure.
Yeah.
But on like the special skills and stuff.
Yeah.
Injuries during the special skills. That's not the time.
Yikes. Yeah.
The special skills line. Now we're starting to talk a little bit about this, but I want to get a bit more specific. What are some do's and don'ts that you see or have observed as dancers, choreographers, fellow auditioners in that room or outside the room? I think that's a great thing to talk about as well.
Stop with the self-deprecating humor. It does not help. It does not help you. It does not help the energy of the room. You are not funny if you're going, well, I'll do my best. That's not, just go do you're not getting the part by lessening the panel's expectations beforehand by being like, I'm not a dancer, here we go. Just show up and do it. We can tell. I'm not on the panel. People can tell if you're not a dancer, right? You're not going, oh, now I know that you're not a dancer. I can see it. So just go do it. And we'll see that you're putting your best foot forward rather than going, okay, thanks for yelling to the whole room that you're not a dancer. We know already. It's fine.
Yeah. So as we said before, like it's a great time to connect with people in the room. However, it is not a time to chat. So I find that actually in Vancouver in particular, I find people can be a little bit too casual. And as much as like, yes, approach it like it's a class. Yes, it's a time to connect with other people, but in a professional way. And it's not a time to chat and catch up with your best friend while other people are dancing. So that's a big thing, especially in Vancouver. It's still an audition. It's still a professional setting. And also, when you are called to go into your group, do not casually saunter into the middle of the room. Like, walk with efficiency. You don't have to sprint, but just like to show that you've been standing and that you're paying attention and you're present in the room, and that when you're called, you're ready and happy to be there. The amount of times that you see somebody take like 3 minutes to walk to their spot, you're like, well, I've already kind of count you out, because you don't really seem excited to be in the room. And then also marking on the sides while people are doing their, like when people go 4 at a time or whatever it is okay to mark on the sides very, very small, but do not do it full out on the side, or else you are totally distracting from the people who are dancing, which is super disrespectful. Even though you don't mean to be, you're just like trying to do your best. No, that is a no. That is a no. So just like professionalism. Those are a few. I'm sure I have more. Anyways.
Yeah, those are good. I feel like for me, something that I used to do that I've gotten a lot better at, and I'm sure other people have done this as well, but like getting caught up on the mistakes, right? Like I would, I'd take time out of my audition to get mad at myself for something that I missed or didn't do as well as I thought. And it's not productive. It's not going to help the next time you get to do it. It's not useful energy. So like taking time to beat yourself up during an audition or while you're learning something is just not helpful, and can be a really negative habit. And yeah, it's taken me years to like undo it. And I used to really self-sabotage at auditions with that. So yeah, I would say that
goes back to what do you kind of focus on, right?
Yeah.
So
totally.
Yeah, the choice to focus on what you want to accomplish and the energy that you do want to bring into the room. Does that kind of speak to that?
Totally. And just like, there's no time, right? Like there's no time, like it's, yeah, like this is kind of getting a little bit off topic, but I remember swinging in for a part and I went through a wrong window. Like I'd never done it anyway. And I went through a wrong window and I got so like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Like when I was going to my next scene change and the person who was with me was like, you don't have time. Like, let's go. Like, and I take that through my whole life now. I'm like, there's no time. Like, just let it go, move on, do better.
I mean, I feel like it's almost part of our job to expect those things to go wrong. And then to be like, okay, that happened, that's done. Now I need to move on and leave that behind, because there's no change.
What are you going to do about it? That's the question. Like, not going to go back and redo the window. What are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. You're going to keep going. You're going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a good life philosophy too. Like even outside the dance call.
That thing's happened. Learn from it. Move on. This is related, and it's not one of the questions that I had originally posed to you guys, but I'm interested. How do you handle that inevitable moment once every however many calls where you blank, like mid dance call? What do you do other than don't be hard on yourself, don't show it off? What do you do?
Like, again, I spent the last however long doing the psychology on this stuff of like, what do? You breathe and you pick up in the next spot. And if that requires standing there and then going, or standing there watching what Makayla's doing, oh yeah, here we go. Mm-hmm. Like, that's fine. Like that's all you can do, rather than being like, I don't know, like that looks way worse than like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, step cross. Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to focus on? The fact that they're like, oh no, the panel doesn't think I can dance now, and now I'm really behind, and now I can do. okay, well, you can either sacrifice the next 30 seconds or you can sacrifice the next 5 seconds. It's up to you. Again, I don't think we fool people as much as like in our brains we think we do. Like by standing there going, huh, what is it? Oh yeah, is exactly the same, if not better than is it it's not hands up, right? Like they can tell either way, so might as well get composed, take a second, take a breath, move on back into it.
Yeah, like I feel like I've actually been pretty fortunate, and like I can't think of a time where I've like seriously like frozen in the small group. But when I'm, when we're all waiting on the side, when they say, okay, now we're going to go into the small groups, is where everybody goes like, ooh, panic, right? So when I'm on the side, I find, and I'm sure that this goes for everybody, I sometimes my mind will go like, what if I blank? What if I forget? What if I mess up? That type of thought, like that type of thinking. And then I'll always just have to like take a breath and be like, no, like, why would I forget? I just did it 10 times. I know what I'm doing. And I think it's just like that positive self-talk that is really, really important for me in like the moments before I go into the small group, and just taking a breath and feeling confident and being like, I just did it 3 times. I know the choreography. I'm gonna be great, I think that that's important. And the few times like when I've been performing or whatever that I have messed up, it's because I started to think about something negative, or oh gosh, what if I mess up? That's always when you mess up, right?
Yeah. Well, I know
Don't mess up.
I know I keep saying it as like a joke, but like that's what the like mental game stuff is all about. It's those thoughts, and how do you control those thoughts, and what do you focus on instead? It's all that
And
stuff,
then
right?
I think, and maybe this is it's related. When I'm learning the choreography, I'm of course learning the steps, but I'm also really trying to listen to the music and think about the story, so that I'm connecting it to the music and to the story. Because when you go out into your group, they're going to play that music. The music will be there for you. So if you are listening and paying attention and matching it to the music, you're going to have that to rely on, opposed to being like, what are the steps? It's something that I've focused on, and I feel like that's been successful. So
Super important to say.
That is such a good point. Yeah, I feel like, like the musicality and then the story of the movement, like usually that's like, it helps with the learning so much. And I feel like learning it full out is important too, because you never know when your muscle memory is going to save you. Sometimes you're not like super conscious of how it's all going down, but your body kind of takes over. So that's great when that happens. And and then just going back to kind of what Paul was saying about, are you going to let this take over the next 5 seconds of your life, or the next 10 seconds or whatever, if you do blank. I think like something that I look for as a choreographer is like, okay, how is this person going to be to work with? So if I'm seeing somebody who gets really inhibited by a mistake, then that's going to be difficult to work with in a rehearsal room. But if it's somebody who can move past mistakes with grace and forgiveness and ease, that's going to be like, mistakes are inevitable, right? They're gonna happen. So how a person moves through those mistakes, if I'm on the choreographer side of things, that is informative to me of how a person will be to work with.
It's like almost more valuable sometimes too.
Totally, yeah.
You can score points.
I've thought about that. Where can I screw up on purpose so I can show up that I can recover?
Oh yeah.
100%. I don't think I've ever done it, but I've been like, I could pretend to forget that, and then like, but I haven't done that.
You wouldn't mess up you trying to mess up.
Probably.
Oh, that's funny.
I legitimately believe that there's a specific audition I have in my head where I have messed up like quite royally, but saved it by like made a strong choice. Like I think I like fell out of a turn or something, and instead and it was like happened to be at the end of the call, so I hit a strong end pose and everyone knew I'd fallen out of it. Like it was bad. It was not savable. So I like made a strong choice. I was like, well, we're going to have some fun. Everyone knows what's happened. And I honestly think that's part of the reason I got the job.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, obviously there's some specific dance calls where they really need you to be like on point, but I think most of the time people aren't expecting you to be perfect.
Also, what would you rather watch? You rather the person who gets it right and is like,
Yeah.
or would you rather the person who's like killing it in the moment and they're like, I got no idea what I'm doing? I don't know.
Somewhere in the middle would be nice, but
I'd rather the person who can sell it. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that is true. I think there are kind of different styles of dance calls. I'm generally not in the rooms of this has to be like, we're going to rock out our 4 turns and technique. I don't even have like the technical terms just to describe the calls that I mean.
This is right.
Yeah, like that.
This is correct.
Yeah, but even those times where I have been in a room where I'm like, okay, so this is a little bit harder for me, but what I can use is what I've got, and I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
That's more fun. Now, I think this is going really nicely into my next question, which I think we've answered in a few different ways, but I'm wondering, what advice do you have for emerging artists going into their first dance calls? I think it's
First dance calls.
Don't try to outdance yourself. Like, you're not gonna get the job on a fluke. You're not gonna be like, well, maybe I'll show up when it's a group of 4 and I'm gonna dance it perfectly. Like, you're not gonna accidentally do a triple pirouette. So, and then what, are you gonna get the show and then 8 shows a week you're gonna magically do it? No, you want to show them what you can do on the spot, and you want to book it because of that. And you want to present what you can do so that when you show up at the job, they're not going, all right, so we're doing that triple pirouette now. They know if I'm casting Paul, I know he's doing a single pirouette, and that's what he's bringing, and I'm casting him because of X, Y, and Z, right? So that way you can do nothing wrong on a dance call, because then I'm going in and I'm showing you what I can do. And if you want to use my skill set, you can have it. But I'm not going to lie to you or try and fake it through the dance call, because A, you can't fake it, they can tell. And B, I don't want to book it. I don't want to accidentally book a chorus line, get to rehearsal, and then be like, oh yeah, whoops, magically got it right on that one day, but turns out I can't do any of this. That's not useful to me or the choreographer. So
yeah, I think that there's a lot of work that you can always be doing outside of the room. But I think when you go, so like train your butt off as much as possible, like that's a given. We all know that. But I think on the day of your audition, like Paul says, you're not magically going to become a better dancer than you are in that moment. So I think you need to be kind of real with yourself about like, what can I bring into this room? I think sometimes people feel that if they can't get the choreography, like getting the choreography right is the only thing that they need to bring. That is not true. I think that if you aren't going to be able to nail all of the choreography, you need to think about what it is that you can bring to the table. Because 9 times out of 10, the panel can kind of tell when you walk in the room what your level of dance is. I don't know, dance is this thing where we can kind of just tell by the way you walk sometimes. So we know what your ability is. And again, I feel like most people aren't expecting you to be perfect, depending on what the call is, but you can bring so much to the table, even if you aren't totally nailing the choreography. Like you can bring story, you can bring acting, you can bring just like a positivity. Like the amount of times I've seen people just, again, this sort of goes into what I was saying before, walking onto the floor like they're absolutely dreading it. That's not going to make us want to hire you, right? Like just seeing somebody who isn't nailing it, but is happy to be there and is open, like that is so awesome to see. So just like bring yourself, try to enjoy it, even though you're probably being pretty stressed, but just bring what you can, positive attitude, try not to dwell on the mistakes, and just bring something to the table. Hopefully you and your personality. And then then go away and be like, okay, I didn't nail the choreography. Let's go into class so that I can up my game there, and then just keep working at it.
Yeah, I feel like yeah, that's totally it. Is like like for an emerging artist, like first dance call, like if it's your first dance call, just like have a good time, like be present. And if that's exciting, your first dance call, great, so fun, like you'll learn so much. And then something that I do for every audition, and I think is a great place to start, is always having 3 goals. So 3 personal goals, so that I can be in charge of my own experience and my own learning and my own growth. So if I give myself 3 goals, like say like being as present as possible, or making sure that I stretch before the dance call, and you know, whatever they are, then I can go away after the dance call and reflect on those 3 goals and be like, okay, did I do those 3 things? Did I not? If I did, then it's a win whether I get the job or not. And then if I didn't, then it means that I can continue to monitor growth in that area. So that I think would be great to do for your first dance call and every other audition you ever do.
Yeah, I think that's super applicable to, for me at least, for every audition I do,
Totally.
whether it's a monologue, a dance call, a singing call.
It's
like
amazing. It's amazing what results you'll get when you stop being result oriented and start being process oriented.
Yeah. And
Totally.
and also I'll just say, like watch the people in the call with you. But sometimes like you need to know what works for you, but just like watch the other people in the room, because you can learn so much from watching, right? So yeah.
Totally.
We have a great question here from the audience from Haley Allen that Amanda, I think is a great one for you to answer. This goes a bit farther than an audition dance call, but how did you work your way up to being a recognized choreographer? How many steps, classes, or years did it take? What would you recommend to an emerging choreographer?
Sure, great question. Well, to be honest, choreography kind of happened as a mistake. It was something that I always wanted deeply inside myself, but I always said, oh, I probably won't be able to do that till I'm 30 or 40, like probably not till way later in my career. And then I was in an environment where there were more actors than dancers. And so because people knew that I had a dance background, somebody requested that I would choreograph a show that they wrote. And I did it and I loved it. I ended up being quite good at it. So I think it's like, if that's a skill that you have, I think make it known that you want to start developing it to people who might need that skill. So if you've got friends who are playwrights or composers and want to do either a production or a I just saw a little bug on the ground. Sorry, I got distracted. Or even want to just like play around with that, with like just keep practicing that skill. Yeah, and then I think it's just like about letting people know that you're interested, because yeah, it kind of like for me, it honestly, it happened a bit organically. Like people started asking instead of me totally putting it out there. But I think if I wasn't, like, I'm very passionate about it. And so I think that communicated that I wanted to do it, if that makes sense. So yeah, put yourself in environments where you can use the skill, let people know that you want to develop it, and just like do it with like all your heart.
Yeah, it's a mindset thing. I mean, I'm not a choreographer, but it's like, if you want something, set a goal, work your butt off, and then be optimistic about getting there, and you'll magically get somewhere close. That's just a life thing.
Also, we're gonna have a panel specifically about choreography in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for that.
Before we move on for that, I'll just say that I have worked with Amanda as a choreographer, and she's just a wonderful delight.
Thanks, Paige.
Of course. Oh, you're wonderful to work with. I'm so glad we got to. Now I have a question specifically for Makayla. You have so much experience as a dancer. You grew up dancing from a very young age. You've danced film, television, cruise ships, theater, and I feel like you always have a great eye of being able to see these little details that I personally can't, because you've been doing this for so long and it's such a good part of your skill set. What is something you see or practice in your dance work that you think others can learn from, whether that's in class or rehearsal halls or outside of it all?
It's a doozy. Okay, where do I start? So for me, when I'm watching other dancers, just in my own time for fun, the thing that I think is one of the most important things, and I've already sort of touched on this, is that you have to bring yourself to it, and you have to be able to share. It's still, to me, it's still storytelling. And so, especially in musical theater, holy smokes, that's the reason we're dancing, is because we need to tell this story further, right? So for me, that's one of the biggest things that I look for and I'm like really attracted to in dancers that I like watching. And I feel like that's a commonality. Like if there's a dancer that people all really like, it's probably because they bring themselves to it and you're connected to them as a storyteller, as well as, hopefully beautiful technique and all those things. So that's something that I have always tried to bring to my dancing, because I've been trained technically my whole life. So I'm fortunate in that I have like an extensive background. Sometimes people ask me like, oh, what's your advice for dance calls? And then I jokingly say like, well, if you could go back in time and start training when you were 6, that would be great. So anyways, I'm lucky that I started training at a young age. That being said, my technique isn't as amazing as a lot of other dancers. So I've had to really bring myself and my acting and my storytelling as like to supplement that. And then I also think it's important to train in many different styles. Like it's like singing. The more that you train in, it's just going to make you more well-rounded. And again, especially with theater, the style is evolving and changing so much, like before our eyes. And now we have like a lot of hip hop influence that's coming in. So I just think it's important to train yourself in all sorts of different styles. And then something I tell people when they're learning combinations is to take it back to like 40% when you're learning the choreography. So you can figure out kind of like where it feels in your body. And then from there, you can choose the moments that you want to really accentuate, opposed to just giving 110 the whole time. I find sometimes that happens in dance calls for musical theater because people are excited and they want to show what they can do. But I find it's much more effective to create like an arc, opposed to just like 110 the whole time. So I find learning it small is good to just like get it in your body, and then find the moments that you can accentuate. So texture is really what I'm saying, texture and dynamics, because that's what's going to set you apart than if you're just singing happy birthday super loud the whole time, or if somebody, like creates, what's the word I'm looking for? Like an arc, or just
photography.
Yeah, just like if you can, I can't think of the word, you know what I mean? If you can just like create an art piece with what you've been given, and yeah, beginning, middle, and end, you guys know what I mean. Okay, I've been rambling.
What a great ramble. Yeah, Amanda?
Oh, I just wanted to pop in and say, like, in terms of like the go back in time and like dance when you were 6, I just wanted to let people know that like I work as a dancer and a choreographer, and I started dance at 15, really hardcore when I was 16. I was old as like a dancer. So if you work your butt off, like I was working, but I was like putting in the time, you know what I mean? Like 40 hours a week, like it was, and that was high school, and I was very privileged to be able to have done that, to have had parents who wanted to support that and everything. But if you like personality, storytelling, but like if you don't have that technique, like the technique is what like translates that storytelling. Like get to class, and just because you start a little bit later doesn't mean that you can't learn those skills. Of course, you're always going to have to like think about pointing your feet. It's not going to be automatic like if you started pointing your feet at the age of like 4 or 5, but you can. It's it's not too late. Like you can still, yeah.
The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now.
Well, and not to like whatever, but like I feel like Paige can attest to this, because sometimes people will say, oh, well, you started training at 6, so blah blah blah. But like, especially in my like early adult years, from like 19 to 25, I trained my freaking butt off. Like I was in class every single day. So the work never ends. And it's, yeah, like the people who are well trained, it's because they worked their butt off. So you can do it too. You just got to put in the time.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you do the ITP program at Harbor during our first year at CAP?
Yeah, I did source during first year.
Source, sorry.
That's
Like-
so intense.
Makayla,
Oh, good for
It
you.
really,
hours.
it really, like for me, I just loved it, and it's what I wanted to be doing. So it didn't feel like work. It was just like, I'm gonna be there taking class every day anyways. I might as well be in a program. So
So cool. That's amazing.
it was
I
good.
also have a follow-up question to something you said, Makayla. I'm wondering who are dancers that you watch and you get that kind of feeling of wanting to bring their energy or what they're bringing into your work. Also applicable to everyone else.
Yeah, so I'm probably trying to think of people in the community that I can kind of do like a shout out to. I can throw a shout out to Miss Jen Lynch for sure. Like she's somebody in the community that like she's a great dancer, but she brings herself 100% to every dance call, or not just dance call, like audition, anything she does really. She really brings herself, and I think that's part of why she's so great to watch. And then there's a lot of like commercial dancers that I can try to think who else. Oh no, I'm blanking. Oh, Kieran Bohe, fantastic dancer who brings a lot of storytelling. So those are my two. Sarah Brewerton, so many great people to look up to that are in our community. The list goes on and on.
Oh, Jen Lynch says thank you.
Oh yeah, shout out.
Okay,
There's so many. I could shout out a bajillion people, but yeah.
She is one of those people that you think of and go like, yeah, she's
Brings
bringing-
herself 120% always.
Especially on Wednesday matinee.
especially on a Wednesday matinee. Paul, I know you didn't start dancing until later in life, but I know you as a super strong dancer mover type, and as someone who comes from a strong physical background in sports. And what was something that surprised you that carried over from your sports training into your slightly newer dance world?
I didn't have to think as much because of the movements. I had to learn the technique. I had a long way to catch up with technique, but I was able to translate things into just movements. So for example, learning how to chasse rather than trying to fit it into this dance. What is a chasse trying to accomplish? It was very easy. Like, this is a jump. It's whatever it is, left, right, left. It's I was able to easily do that. And then in my brain, I would go, oh, so when I just go, whatever it is, left, right, left. Oh, okay, so that's a pas de bourrée. Great. And so rather than trying to specifically learn a dance move, I could, in my brain, just go, okay, this is what that is. I don't know, it's hard to articulate, but it's, the movements came easier, I guess. I had to learn more nuance, and I had to learn choreography and pictures, and I had to learn style and technique, and I mean, I still am, but.
And how, I always think this is a good story. How did you learn that quickly?
What quickly?
Well, because you were sort of thrown into a situation where you had to.
Oh yeah, like I also have to just like set yourself up in a position where you have to learn it quickly, like sink or swim. I auditioned for the P&E dance shows and got it, like probably because they needed guys, but whatever. And so I was around very, very, very good dancers, and I was very, very, very much not. And so you're sink or swim, forced to learn it right now. But in my brain, I can hit the same picture they're hitting. I may not have the 16 years of technique from beforehand, but if we need to end up wherever here, I can do that. So great. That's what I can bring to the table. I can hit the same pictures you can. And then the in between, the movement, how you get there, the intention, all the style, all those things. I was obviously lacking, and that's where I had to make up ground, and still have to make up ground. But I think it's just that of being efficient with my brain, but also, yeah, don't try to be a dancer. I can be an athlete and hit the same pictures and looks the same.
I do think though that like surrounding yourself in, as long as it's a positive setting and you don't feel totally defeated, but if you can surround yourself with people who are like a little bit better than you, you're always going to get better.
I'd rather be the weakest person in the room than the best.
Yeah, like you don't want it to totally deflate your ego, so it's like a delicate balance. But if you can be around people who are better than you, but you're like, oh, I can do that, that's I think a great way to get better.
Liked it. Being the weakest person in the cast or in the room means I'm in charge of how good this show's going to be. Great, let's go.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. So.
Well, I want to say that I saw that Peony show, and you were lovely, and you did not stick out as a weak link. I enjoyed it a lot. It was very
There's
sunny August day.
There are some pictures.
Yes. I imagine there are very colorful costumes. Also, something that I think you may have been saying, and maybe you did or didn't mean to, but kind of talking, this is more of a technical thing, about the importance of knowing where your weight is in a dance call is a really simple thing that when I started focusing on going into a room, being like, I may not know every step, but I know where my weight's supposed to be and what direction I'm facing, which sounds kind of like basic.
It doesn't sound at all like
so important.
It doesn't sound at all dancer lingo-y, but that's exactly what it is. Okay, so you want me to turn to the left, and then we're going to go right, left, right, and then we're going to go there, and then we're going to turn to the back, and we're going to make this picture, and then we're going to go to the front, walk 5, 6, 7, 8. I can do it and think that in my brain, and someone else could think, great, pas de bourrée, single pirouette, into a blah, into a chasse, and it's going to look the same to me. So, I mean, not
totally.
It can also like totally help with like picking up choreo, because if you know that your weight is on your right foot and you have your left foot free, then if you like forget whatever the thing is, or if you don't memorize that the next thing is on your left because you knew where your weight was on that previous thing, then that'll help your future stuff.
And just like, so like what everybody was just saying, but like create a map of the choreography. Can I say something before I forget?
Please.
That's like I think it's pretty important. Going back to like in the dance call with the choreographer, Amanda, I'm sure this is maybe something that you do that is important, but if the choreographer specifically says, I really care about you making this picture, you best make that picture. There's some people who, and then there's other moments where choreographers will be like, you know what, this part, I kind of just I want to see what you bring to it. So like kind of do your own flavor there. Be very active about listening to the specifics that the choreographer is giving you. Because if you're doing your own thing in the section that they say, I really care about this being exactly this, even if you're killing it, you might not get the job because they're going to be like, oh, she didn't listen to the notes that I was giving. So be really clear about giving the choreographer what they've asked for.
There's usually a few.
And there's also a really good way to get points. Because if you're like, you said you want this shape, and then they'll be like, good, check mark.
There's usually a few, like know the beginning well, know the end well. And then the way I have navigated things, like let's say in a count of 8, I don't know what 2, 3, and 4 are, but I know on 5, 6 is a pirouette. Being able to navigate that to, okay, I'm just going to let counts 2 and 3 sit for a second, but I'm going to nail that pirouette. So I'm going to hit 1, 5, and 6, and 8 for you. And I'm going to do them well, rather than kind of muddling up the whole thing. I'm hitting those specific things. So that's, I mean, it's a very basic and like Neanderthal way of thinking about it, but in
Helpful.
and anecdotally, it's just like, that's how I navigate.
Yeah. And if you're not killing the choreo, but you're hitting the shape that the choreographer wanted, that's great. That's important.
Yeah, and like that kind of goes back to like taking different people's dance classes, right? Because when a choreographer wants the thing their way and they're like looking for like their artistry to be executed in that certain way, it's really awesome when you feel like you have a lot of variety within yourself so you can do those things. And then also having like knowing when you, like Makayla said, like knowing when the parts that are more free that you get to show your artistry, right? So it's like it's this balance, right, of like a choreographer's vision and what the dancer or the executor like does with it, right? It's like, how do you make an art together?
Amazing. Then we're in our last 10 minutes. So if anyone has any questions they haven't asked, please post away. One of my final two questions that I have prepared is, what is in your dance bag? What is something that you like have in your dance bag that's got to come with you, which may or may not change?
Extra socks.
Extra socks.
For me,
I don't know. That's a good question.
okay, so anyone who knows me will know this. I'm like, again, dance is sort of one of my things. So I have a lot of dance shoes, and that is not something that everybody needs to have. But I personally have a lot of dance shoes, and I will usually bring most of them. But I will bring my beige shoes, and I will bring black shoes. And if I'm wearing an outfit with beige tights, I will bring my beige shoes, but then I would also put black tights in the bag, because I cannot stand when the shoes and the tights don't match. Cannot stand it. That's just a personal thing. And the reason is that it breaks up the line of your leg. So I'm always going for the longest legs I can possibly.
Me too.
The illusion. Anyways, so I'll always bring, both pairs of, both color of tights, both color of shoes. I'll bring sneakers, depending on what the show is. And like, usually you have a pretty good idea going into the dance call of what type of style, or they will have told you like, this is heels, or bring your whatever. But I always bring my tap shoes, because even if it's not a tap show, you never know when someone's just gonna be like, hey, can you tap? Anyways, variety of shoes, maybe a couple of different outfits, just in case I get there and then all of a sudden feel like I'm not dressed appropriately. And water and a smile.
In the bag, you put it on.
It's like Mrs. Potato.
Yeah, I don't know. That's all I got.
Great.
Yeah, my bag's similar. Tap shoes, sneaks, character shoes, water, maybe granola bar in case it goes late, for blood sugar situations. And normally I wear natural deodorant, but I always have like a secret or whatever, like deodorant, like a chemically deodorant in my bag in case, and a journal. I always have a journal so that I can write down those 3 goals at the beginning and then reflect on them at the end, usually in a coffee shop, buy myself a treat after the dance call.
Post-audition treat, always.
Yeah.
Treat yourself. You just did a fun thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add on a little anecdote, the one time I didn't bring backup clothes to an audition, and I wore like my nice dress and I had heels, and I got out and I looked at what everyone else was wearing for the dance call, because we did our singing call and then we got out, and then everyone changed for the dance call, and it was like they all knew what the dance call was going to be, and they were all wearing like sweatpants and runners. And
Who was wearing sweatpants?
Everyone.
It's a very Toronto thing to do as well.
It was like, I was like, oh dear, this is not going to be good, because I was like in my higher character shoes and like a floral print dress. and I happened to have worn a leotard underneath, because I always wear a leotard under my dress for a dance call or any kind of movementy call, just in case I want to feel comfortable. So I happened to have a leotard on. I had walked to the audition with like a pair of leggings, because I never wear what I'm going to wear for the audition in. I get changed there because I don't want it to get sweaty, because I sweat a lot. So I happened to have those. I happened to have brought my runners. I almost didn't. I almost wore my Uggs. So I happened to, like, maybe 3 minutes before this dance call, completely changed my outfit, brushed out my nice hair, and like walked into the room sweaty after making a quick change. So now I always make sure there's something there.
May I?
Please
This
do.
is very personal preference, people. This is my personal opinion. Take it or leave it. First of all, I will say always have shorts in your bag. I don't know. You never know. Just have them there, because if you need them, it's better to have them than not. This people will fight with me sometimes about this, but like, I don't think that you should go into a dance call wearing your sweatpants. I think it's really important. I'm not saying that every dance call is a leotard and like a dress or a skirt appropriate. Sometimes you can wear leggings, that's fine. But I think it's really important to walk into the room looking like you put thought into what you're wearing, and that it's not, as much as, again, we say, treat it like a class, treat it like a very important class that you've put some thought into. If you roll in your sweatpants and your baggy t-shirt, it doesn't show us that you really care about being there. It's just like a level of professionalism. And I know a lot of people do wear kind of what I would consider sweatpants, and that is fine, and that has worked for them. But my feeling is just like, when I walk in the room, I want people to know that I care about being there. And I do think that it goes hand in hand with being seen. And I feel like some of the things that I've like chosen to wear make you stand out, because you look like you put thought into it. That's all.
And to clarify, these people who are wearing sweatpants and the one I was in, it was a mixture of sweatpants, leggings, and they all knew what the dance call was going to be. And I did not get this premonition about what it was going to be. And that was my error.
I'm curious what show this was that called for sweatpants.
We'll talk later. Oh, and then we're in our last 3 minutes. If anyone has anything to add on, I have one silly question to end us out. If anyone has anything to finish up before we end for our hour. Last nuggets of wisdom. Silly question. Okay. What is your favorite dance movie? What did it get right? What did it get wrong?
No.
I think there's only one right answer, but I'm very
Center stage, baby.
Yeah, for sure.
Red
Red Point.
shoes, baby.
But also Chicago and Cell Block. Come on.
yeah.
That's like
I mean,
that's like a good dance movie. Center
The
stage is like a bad.
Also,
Exactly.
burlesque, people, burlesque. Great choreo.
Okay, well now
I don't think I've ever watched that.
The movie
Christina,
is
right?
like but the choreo.
Speaking of amazing
Alright.
choreo, has anyone seen Mamma Mia, the movie? Oh, whew, pretty phenomenal. What's that?
I'm not familiar with Mamma Mia. Could you tell me about it, Paul?
I can. That will be a separate panel titled Mamma Mia.
Here we go again.
Mamma Mia, here we go again, the panel.
It's going to be a dramatic reading of Mamma Mia. I'll play all 17 parts.
Brilliant.
You
all
can Jason Sakaki wear a shirt that says everybody.
amazing. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Thank you to everyone. Oh my gosh. Thank you to everyone who's watched and who will watch. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the comments, and we will try to answer those in our own time. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Next week, we have some more panels coming your way. This series will have a panel on agents and improv next week, which will be very fun. We hope to see you there. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.